2,
10.
Is it waterproof, Dad?
So what do we think?
Boy, I've done an awful lot of talking about O-rings and whatnot. Hey everybody, Jason here. I hope you're all doing really good. So I just used my Blackview BV8800 underwater for, I don't know, I guess about 20 minutes because, well, it has an underwater mode for the camera. I figured it would have been okay, right? Well, upon coming out of the water, I noticed that I have a little bit of fog here on the rear camera lenses, which is telltale signs of liquid damage. And it all of a sudden started rebooting itself, so you know, that's a bad sign. So it seems this thing is in need of some pretty immediate surgery in hopes that I can actually save this thing. And apparently this is the only screwdriver I have that fits. That's nice. So let me just yank all the screws out of this thing, and then we'll see what we got behind door number 1. Feel a little bit of beach sand crunching here. So I've never actually taken one of these apart before. I only watched briefly a teardown online, but it was in another language, so I really don't understand what was being said. So it should be reasonably interesting to find out what's inside of here. And also interesting to find out where it's leaking. I think I already know where it went in. In the video that I was recording, you can actually hear the microphone clicking, going click, 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 click. It sounds very distinctly like water seeping in. The clicking noise is very disturbing. And if I had heard that, I would have probably yanked this thing out of the water in a hurry, because the clicking noise, I believe, is a telltale giveaway that it's leaking water right past the microphone. I mean, that is the only thing that I could think of that it could be. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is that sound water leaking past a microphone? All right, now I am gonna keep all of these screws in order just in case there are any weird sizes going on here. Look at this. This phone has one short screw. So it would appear to be the complete opposite of what Apple normally does. They normally give you a bunch of short holes and then one long screw. This phone appears to have a bunch of long holes, but then one short screw, which honestly, that probably increases our odds of pounding the wrong hole. Okay, then enough yakking. I'm pretty well certain that this thing is sitting here sizzling and frying as we speak. So I need to get the battery unhooked first. Let's go ahead and pull the SIM tray out of it. I'm sure that's blocking something. And now let's see how these rails come off of here. I think they should just pry off. Hoping there's not a bunch of adhesive. All right, so here's this side with our button included. There's not actually anything here that would keep the water from getting under this plate. So it's pretty well a given that water is going to get into this next section here. Right here is the hole for the SIM tray, and if we slide that in there, just curious to see where that actually seals. Does the O-ring seal all the way to the plastic housing? Yes, it does. So that is actually designed to seal up. I was really scared for a minute that the O-ring was only going to be designed to fit this and make everybody feel really warm and fuzzy, but then leak really bad. But no, it is actually made to seal in the housing. Now peeling the other side off of here, I expect it to come apart pretty much exactly the same. A little prying, a little popping, and it pops right off of there. Got any wires attached? I know we got a fingerprint sensor over here, so we should have some wires attached. This side seems to be... Hold on, back up just a little bit. So these actually do have like a slot. There's like a slot in the aluminum, and that slot goes into a lip here on the plastic. So it is kind of tongue and grooved, but still sort of leaky. So how about this fingerprint sensor here anyways? So we've got this slotted thing going on this side, and I know that this is a fingerprint sensor. So we've got the fingerprint sensor on a ribbon here, and that just rests right on top of the power button. And it does not look like we can just unplug that. And then also, as far as liquid proofing, it sort of looks like they just glued the ribbon through the housing there. I think that's what we're looking at. All right, so enough screwing around here. Let's see what's going on the inside, shall we? We can all see we have foggy lenses, right? All right, here we go. What, we got a hidden screw or something? I bet we do. Oh, it was just stuck. All right, here we go. Drum roll, please. All right. So that little click, 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 click sound that was heard in the video that I was recording underwater is obviously water leaking past this microphone membrane on the back right here. And this housing actually has two of them. It's got one on top and one on bottom. Those are these little holes here that are microphones. So if we want to get sound in or out, you know, it's going to be a little bit tricky to keep the water out. So let's set that aside and start letting that dry. So all the O-ring in the world is not going to help us if we have water trickling past the microphone or ear speaker membranes. And this is just on the back. So we have the leaky spot here. And then also it looks like something leaked down here, but I think that might have dripped off the housing. I'm not sure. What is it going to take to get the battery unhooked? I'm just going to remove a few more screws here and see what we've got. I believe this that I am unscrewing right now is the infrared blaster. That's what it appears to be anyways. And it has a separate screw on there because why? Oh, there's actually two screws. Jason's blind today. I'm determined to tear stuff up, as you can see. That's why I dunked a phone that I knew darn good and well most likely wouldn't take it. All right. That should be just plugged on. I can just disconnect that right here. There we go. That has the infrared blaster removed. I'm really pretty anxious to get to that battery to unhook it. Let's just go ahead and pull some screws out of here. Again, trying to be careful that these are actually the same size. All right, just a couple more screws and I think this black part of the housing up here up top will come loose. We might have a couple of cameras in the way. We'll disconnect that one. This one here should like fold up, right? This microphone, look, I think it's pretty safe to say the click, 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 click was watered right here. All right, so we'll just fold that up and get that out of the way. Man, there's a lot of water in there. Just kind of soak that up nice and proper. Now it sure looks to me like to get this plastic off of here, this is the vibrator and it looks like that is just hard soldered to this flex cable right here. So try to pry it loose. I think I'm just going to go with prying it loose since it probably needs to come out of there and dry anyways. All right, so I'm just going to try to peel that up. There we go, that's got that out of the way. Microphone out of the way. The cameras are moving beneath that plastic, so it looks like I can just leave those there. And now this thing ought to pop out of here, right? Or not? Just put a little drop of alcohol under there to maybe help me do this without tearing it up. How is that going to come loose? Let's try it from the other side. There we are, nice and proper. All right, we'll fold that back out of the way. Honestly, I don't see anything else except this one screw up here. And now with that, this should pop out of here. Unless I'm missing yet one more screw. Yeah. So once we get this one last screw, this thing ought to come apart with ease. Oof. All right, so here we go. Pop this off of here. Yeah, there we go. Well, you know, that's actually not too bad. As in, I'm glad to be saving the phone, but as far as a device that is marketed to be ready to go underwater, I don't understand how these cell phone manufacturers can do it. Apple does it, Samsung does it. They produce these commercials showing people underwater in the swimming pool like, yay, take pictures and capture the memories. And some of these are $1,000 phones, and that will destroy the phone. Like, so let's get that battery unhooked like right away, shall we? We seem to have a ton of connectors here, and I don't know which one the battery is, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the right thing and disconnect most of them. I am pretty sure that this one right here is the battery. This one here obviously hooks to another camera. One of those, when I unhooked it, popped off with the vibrator like extension flex thingy. And then the next connector over, it's actually this microphone here, and they've made that a replaceable component, so we could actually disconnect that. So then we can replace just the microphone. And after what I just put it through, I'm pretty sure it's at least going to need some attention. Let's have a look at that microphone under the microscope. So this would be its actual second time underwater, like really underwater, like put underwater and stay underwater. And I honestly thought it was going to look a little bit worse than this. I'm going to turn this microphone up and look at it on its side. And I just don't know how we wouldn't be starting to see some solidified solids here. And we actually are. There is obviously smuts underneath this microphone on a device that literally has an underwater mode. And when you enable it, it gives you the ability to manipulate the camera shutter by the buttons instead of the screen, because the screen doesn't work when it's underwater. And did they not test this stuff? Anybody that does this sort of repair for a living will tell you that no, none of them are waterproof. Water will leak past the ear speaker mesh. They leak past the microphone membranes, and they just not waterproof. Definitely not waterproof. So I've already came this far, and I'm noticing that there's actually liquid puddled up right here. I really just have to assume that water has leaked past also the mesh for the ear speaker, which I'm not really sure that would happen, because that's like way up here. And if we flip the phone, that part, anyways. We've also got liquid over here. I need to pull this logic board out of here. I almost tried to talk myself out of it just now, but that would really that would not be good. This looks like a connector, is it? It is. So let's pull this out of here. This is a camera. Looks like we've got two more connectors. A couple of screws, or at least one screw. Hey, wait a minute. Do we have one logic board screw? It is like Samsung. All right, here we go. Let's see if that board will lift out of there, shall we? You know there's more hidden screws. They all got to hide screws. Well, no, we have a lip over here on this side. It's got like a snap. So if I can get it to pop up on this end, I think it'll come out of there. It really just doesn't feel good. I mean, it feels significantly bad. All right, so here's the front camera. What's holding this thing in here? Let's just go ahead and disconnect some cables just in case they're hiding a screw from me. No, wait, it was just stuck. All right, here we go. Here comes that logic board. I just don't understand what's holding that in there. So it looks like they've actually got connectors here on the bottom of the logic board that is holding it in. Yeah, and look, I've actually already accidentally disconnected this one over here, and we've got plenty of thermal compound to hook the board to the rest of this thing. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect these flex cables here on the bottom. Maybe. Okay, there's one. There's two. Now that board should be completely free, but we've also got an antenna cable over here. So as that board comes out, we have to be mindful of that antenna flex because it's going to be stuck on there. And I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect that to get that out of the way. You know, it's not like an iPhone or something where I have dozens of these parts laying around. Man, that is really in there. All right, now that'll come out of there. There we go. So now I got the logic board out of it, which thankfully it does not look like it got any liquid on here anywhere. And also thankfully I didn't tear any of the unknownness going on here. So I'm just going to sit this here with the thermal compound upright. Now I haven't came this far to not look under the bottom end of this phone. And also I am going to need to remove that battery because it's going to be really difficult to plug these flex cables back in with that battery in the way. So continuing on this adventure here. All right, here we go, final screw. Okay, let's get this out of here and see if we got any liquid seeping in around the charge port or around the bottom thingies. I've got one of these things just sort of laying around here for some reason. I don't understand why. Just gonna go ahead and set that aside. Now, what does it take to get the battery out of this thing? Is it just as simple as picking up on it and pulling it out? Gently, right? Oh. Pull a little harder. Oh, yeah. Oh. Not too bad. It did come out of there with a bang, but you know, it did come out of there. And thankfully I didn't tear anything up. It looks like they just hold this in with 2 strips of adhesive, one on each side. And if I had known that, I might have taken that out of there just a little bit differently. So looking in the bottom of the phone here with the microscope, I really don't see any... Wait a minute, what's that? Is this water? I can't tell. I think it is. Oh yeah, yeah, there it is. We definitely have water in the bottom of the phone. So we do need to continue this tear down. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the charge port. So I'll disconnect the other end of this antenna flex or antenna coax and stick that out of the way. And it looks like the entirety of removing this charge port is simply just disconnecting these last 2 flex cables. And I think this charge port is gonna slip right out of here. It does. So then, where is that water leaking in then? Could it be right here around the microphone membrane that I can clearly see water all around? Right here? Very obviously. This is the hole that the sound needs to come through whenever you're talking, and there is where the liquid came in. Now, as far as the actual charge port itself, this whole area sort of looks dryish. I'm pretty sure they've got that sealed. The main issue on this phone is just these goofy little microphone membranes. You know, if somebody would invent a mobile device that didn't have any microphones, no speakers, but its only method of connectivity was Bluetooth, I think I might buy that, although the microphone would kind of suck to do without. So as far as repairability, I mean, this thing is actually pretty good. There's not a bunch of crazy adhesives and like a bunch of heat and stuff needed to get it apart. But as far as being waterproof, it's just, again, these things are water resistant. Now, everywhere that they have like beefed this up with an O-ring and like O-ringatized everything, I mean, it didn't leak. But everywhere we need sound to get in, it is also letting water get in. It leaks right past that membrane. What about the loudspeaker on the bottom? I've heard that these are made out of like something that's just okay to get wet. So having a gander down inside that speaker, it honestly doesn't look like any water has made it through there. What does the loudspeaker hole look like where that slips in the housing? It has like a big old thick mesh there. And it really doesn't look like water has made it past that. Now, why would we use a big old nice thick mesh for the loudspeaker, but then this tiny little flimsy, they all do it, this tiny little flimsy membrane where the microphone is? I mean, they advertise this stuff as being waterproof, and it's not. Anyways, I am gonna let this thing sit here and dry out for a good long time. My pool is really low on chemicals, so there's probably less chemicals in that than there is tap water, or I'm not going to do any crazy work to this. I'm just going to let it sit and dry out, put it all back together, and it'll most likely be fine. So anyways, that's it for this one, everybody. I really thank you all for watching, and please don't use your phones underwater. Have a good day, everybody. I'll see you next time. So then, It's now about 5 a.m. and this thing has been laying out drying. I just put the board under the microscope to see about putting this thingy back on here. And I have noticed something rather interesting. If we get over here and we look around this screw hole here, we see some human footprints, fellers, or rather fingerprints. It looks like we have had a soldering iron in here possibly, and I'm not sure that they tried to wick it or what in the heck happened here. Is there anything else remarkable going on with this board? To be honest, the board construction, it reminds me somewhat of like the way Nokia does it. We've actually still got some labeling on the board itself, which the last Nokia phone that I worked on, I was surprised to see that the components many of them were actually labeled. Well then, no sense in screwing around then. I'm just going to go ahead and add some flux here and see if I can stick this thing back on the board. Let's just swap this alloy on the board out for something that actually wants to melt. There we go. Now let's see if we can pull that little ball out of there, shall we? You know what? I'll take it. It's just marvelous. Sorta. So just before I put this thing back together, I would like to have a little bit of a peek here at the ear speaker area. They sort of built this, it's similar to like an iPhone 4 or something, where the ear speaker it touches with these contacts, but it's entirely glued into the housing, so it's not really made to be removable. Now, the glue that they use though is this stuff that's pretty pliable. It's not like hard. And there, gentlemen, is how we do that. It's pretty well necessary to peel those cables back in order to get them hooked to the bottom of the board, and then those cables actually have to lay underneath these cables, so I'm not going to be able to do that with one hand. There we go, we got the bottom of the housing back on. This is all went together much easier than I thought. It is worth noting that it seems like all of these connections plug on backwards, and then after this top part of the housing is put back on, these actually fold back over. So this thing is pretty well all the way back together. Now it is worth talking about the battery connector. It is actually under this part of the top housing. If we would have a gap or something in the housing right here, it would have made it possible to disconnect or even replace the battery without taking all of this apart. But to disconnect the battery, it is necessary to take this top part of the housing apart. So it is very much worth mentioning also that the screws that go around up here and down here, they do not actually secure this housing against the O-ring right here in the center. The top and bottom side of this rail actually has a spot for these two lips here to slide into. So when you squeeze that rail down onto the phone, that is what actually pulls that back down against the O-ring. And then we have screws that hold it together. Okie dokie, I have this thing fully reassembled, and I've got to say, I really am quite pleased with the way the O-ring works on this and the way these side rails cinch it down, and it really does pull down flat against that O-ring. From what I can tell, the only real places this thing leaked is through the microphone holes here, and then somewhere down here along the bottom. Now I must say, I am very displeased that I put this thing back together with like a smudge across the front camera, but that doesn't matter anyway because the display is clearly damaged. Now, do you think this is from water seeping in? Or, you know, it's dark along this whole left side? Or is this something that happened as a result of me manhandling the battery out of it? Doesn't really matter. This thing is going to need a new display. Bummer.
Where's my husband? And it takes you forever to find him. So yeah, I found him.